Hello, hello, welcome to my channel. It's Savina, the Skyconics. We're gonna be really quick and just get into this because I was like, oh, I kind of want to do a trailer reaction because there was just so many things that I picked up on, and I thought it would be just fun to discuss and like maybe something comes of it. But then I was like, I had a bit of imposter syndrome, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it because I feel like this is a very fun multi, and I feel this is probably the first time that we're getting a proper narratively a bit more inclined multi than we've got in a very hot minute. Witnessed by Deep Space made a lot of references to things that had happened in the past. This whole banner seems to be really speaking to the core dynamics of the different love interests in a very fun and innovative way. And I love an idol concept. I was a second gen K-pop lover. I listened to J-pop and J-rock growing up, and I used to watch C-pop idol shows. So this entire concept is something that I already am very much enjoying. I really appreciate the fact that they decided to display the idol concept in 5 very distinct different ways. And yes, there's a bit of overlap, but they all do come off very differently. And can I just say, I adore that they made Raphael the center for this. He is made to be the center, and I really feel like he keeps the harmony. His visuals offer the most balance out of the entire love interest roster, and I do find it interesting that they had the other two love interests with other, like, bit more softer appearances with Caleb and Xavier on the left, and then sharper appearances with Zayn and Silas on the right. But I just love how this looks. They look so they look so good. So we're just gonna quickly go through parts of the trailer. I'm going to assume that if you've seen this, you've already seen the trailer, so none of this is going to be too shocking for you. We're just going to go right into it, and I'm just going to go straight in, start pausing some elements, and this, that, the other. I have to say, though, I find it funny that after God of Annihilation with Zayn, we had the glittery moments in the hair to represent his divinity, and now everyone seems to be getting a bit of a glittery moment, but in a fun, bedazzling way. Already off the bat, there's some little distinct visuals happening for everyone, and of course, Zayn being the Megane glasses truther, he has to be a bit different, but we'll go through them all as we get into it. So, I love how this starts feeling like a K-pop awards show, and then showing all the sets. Okay, so right off the bat, obviously, all the sets look amazing. The first thought I had when I saw Silas's set was immediately giving me Innocent Birdcage. This is literally not only just a prison, but this is quite literally giving a circular cage, and it imitates that same visual motif that we saw with Innocent Birdcage with Tomorrow's Catch-22. I do feel like there's a lot of Tomorrow's Catch-22 parallels across some of these cards, but already that, and then this part at the top here also reminds me of the Abyssum Sovereign Ultimate, where you see Silas's eye kind of overhanging behind the both of them. So already that, and then we've got like the feathers that are reminding me of like the Taturas from Abyssum Sovereign. The chains are also again calling into the cage dynamics, the prisoner dynamics, and quite explicitly his character design. So all of this is just already so supreme. This second set is for Raphael, and the broken chandelier in the background is actually a very explicit reference, in my opinion, to the Phantom of the Opera. It's quite a key chandelier scene. What I think this is kind of representing is obviously because Raphael has a set called Phantom of the Siren, and he is a opera singer, and obviously as a siren, he beckons people with his call, but there's this underlying danger that naturally that comes with him, but also this paradox of his own identity, how he perceives himself and how other people perceive him. A lot of it is about performance, and this is breaking that performance. Another thing that comes into my mind is Banquet Ablaze, and essentially how Raphael undoes the rich. And we even saw that in the main quest with what happened very early on with him killing someone with a painting. A lot is going on here, but we'll kind of go into it a bit more in his section. Okay, then we go into Caleb's set. Caleb's set is quite obviously speaking into the fact that it's like an engine. This is like, he was in the DAA, now he's in the Fast Space Fleet. Like, aviation is a core motif and core aspect of his character. And even just the arrows on the side, it feels like it's two different paths, interestingly. One is like, this is the direction to go, and this is not the direction to go in, but they both converge. It's kind of like the balance that him and MC live with, especially as they step into their new relationship. They also look like lights on a runway for a plane to set off. But another part that it's kind of making me think of is his cyborg nature, which we do see with the adjustments made to him as a human person who goes through all of these technological advancements, not necessarily with his own consent, but we also saw that, and I feel like it's parallel a bit more to EXO 2 as well. But then we've got this grungy kind of font element overlaid. I don't really think this is saying anything, but it looks cool. And then we move on to Xavier. Now, Xavier's set is actually so stunning. I love how this is obviously Starry Sea, and they really play into the Starry Sea, which is something that's said across a lot of his content, because literally the bottom of it is a starry sea. Like he's stepping on a starry sea. It's amazing. And that's what he traverses to make his way back to MC. We see a bunch of the moon motifs across, and that's obviously a very key thing for him in terms of Lumiere. Like this is really giving me a memory, especially of these like phases of the moon over here and over here. It's reminding me of his Lumiere Ultimate, and the actual construction around all of this reminds me of the spaceship from the beginning of the entire game, as well as his spaceship that we see during his branch quest a little bit more. So essentially the whole backtracking expedition, and this really works considering his card is called Offbeat Track, so it's quite literally going on the offbeat and creating a new track. Like, oh, it just feels so smart. It's just so self-referential in a very fun way. And then finally, we've got Zane. Now, Zane's quite obvious. We've got the snowflake at the top. We've got this falling snow. We've this recurring triangle motif that I did touch upon in my speculation video. And interestingly, there are 2 triangles, but I feel like there's a lot more paradigms that are kind of happening here, because there's triangles again can represent a lot of things, and they're a recurring motif. And actually, even with GOA, when GOA comes into the floor, when you go into combat, he actually creates a triangle with his hands. You can kind of see it referenced. It's not very clear though, sadly, because you don't really get to see it from the front. But they're clearly a very big aspect towards Zane and his character. And obviously, as referred to in that video, I think it's just meant to be a bigger representation of his power, most primarily order. I do have a lot more to say, obviously, because I've finished GOA at this point, but I'm going to save that for a post-GOA video. But yes, really enjoying this all, very hitting you over the head with the cruciality of triangles. Triangles being very, very orderly, and even snowflakes, though they can have a lot of symmetry, are also somewhat orderly, but there's a difference between the chaos of a snowflake and the order of a triangle. And you can see like that encroaching snow across the triangles is quite riveting. Obviously, it looks pretty visually appealing, but I think it's speaking to something, because his card is called Chilling Crescendo. Now, a crescendo is, by dictionary definition, the loudest point reached in a gradually increasing sound, or the highest point reached in a progressive increase of intensity. And that also just kind of further works for the whole triangle motif. Like, we're trying to get up here, we're trying to be the one in power. But again, I don't think Zane necessarily cares about power. He is the atheist. It's a whole different conversation to be having. But I also think that the banner being called Heartbeats Ablaze really speaks to the aspect of, obviously Heartbeats works for everyone. It's a romance, you know, your heart's being when you're around the person that you love. MC has a heart condition. But Heartbeats Ablaze obviously makes me think of Zane when it comes to the heart. He gave his heart in GOA, as well as he is a cardiac surgeon. And then Ablaze, naturally I'm thinking of Raphael. And I do think those two had such a distinctive and intriguing aspects to when it comes to their cards, but we'll go into that a little bit. Deep Space Tunnel is unstable. The Polar Night descent right on cue. Now, Polar Night, obviously we saw this reference during Zane's birthday card. Vacation is here. The endless party ignites. Bodies move with the rhythm of the beat. Embrace the night and claim the stage with every heartbeat. Oh, they all look so good. Okay, very brave choice to start off with Silas in this motif. But again, I really appreciate... I like the fact that visually we go from being behind him to his side to in front of him. It feels like we're getting to see him across different views. And I know a lot of... I think Silas's card specifically is carried by his aura. I don't think other love interests would be able to get away with his dance or his song. Obviously, because they are each catered to each love interest. This works for him. It's very much giving to that aura and that power that he has. But it's not as high peak energy as Caleb and Raphael. And it doesn't need to be. It's kind of a bit more menacing and sultry. I'm switching over to Twitter to be able to see the actual full video now, because I feel we'll get a better gist because we actually get to see a bit more of the entire situation. So literally the video starts off, we go from behind him, we go to his side, he opens his eyes, and then we're in front of him. And again, it's already giving the idea that he's already shackled, he's in a cage. It's once again Innocent Birdcage. But the interesting thing about Innocent Birdcage was the sense that Silas chose to enter the cage. And so it further calls upon his dialogue during the 3.0 stream, where he essentially said, she's, referring to MC, "You're my unforgivable sin in the fabric of eternity, the very thing that has imprisoned me." It's him choosing to be imprisoned because of his feelings for her. And I think, especially after we just had Beyond Survival, it further reinforces this idea that Silas is consenting to be in this situation and being condemned by whoever else there is because of his adoration and his love for MC. So I think that's a pretty strong start. Now, obviously the lyrics are, it's an earwig. It's literally such an earwig because you cannot get it out of your head. But what I find interesting is already with this frame, I looked at this frame and I was thinking of bird calls or whistling, because immediately what you hear is after this, you can hear a whistle that goes off in the background. And a part of me is like, I feel like that was very intentional that they made him do that gesture then going into that whistle sound. This is also evoking imagery to his introduction to the game because he was shackled in the ad, and then he clearly didn't care too much about the situation that he was in because he could have unshackled himself at any time. And so he does. And this is him unshackling himself. And he's more than aware. He's very arrogant about it, and I really love that trait about Silas. Is he kind of something that looks like a bit of a reverse triangle, but it also makes me think of the color of the Taturas. There's also the asymmetry of his outfit is made very, very clear off the bat. Like, you've got this sexy, sensual half net half, which with also this like stitching patterning, which evokes imagery of his Witnessed by Deep Space outfit. Because there is generally, obviously, there's a lot of asymmetry across all of these cards because it's a bit more of a thing that's like seen as modern within the pop industry, just to have that kind of asymmetry to be cool. But also, especially with Silas, you notice there's so much asymmetry. Even his Abyssum Sovereign outfit leaned in heavily into this level of asymmetry. When it comes to his Witnessed by Deep Space card, you'll notice it's a similar situation where it is the left side where there's a lot more of that stitching detailing and line work detailing. And then on the other side, it isn't as much. But quite interestingly, there was like a wraparound across both the bottom parts of the sleeves, almost like shackles. So I think that's quite interesting. And a detail of note. Because I feel like if he's going to have a wing, it might quite literally be on this side of him. Because there is a lot of discussion around the concept of Silas being a Gian bird, or essentially being a one-winged entity. Maybe one wing was stripped off of him, or he was born that way and MC has the other wing. But there's that level of balance, and you do actually kind of notice this concept of balance explored with the other love interests in very different ways. And with Silas, it's heavily with that wing imagery. I really enjoyed that like grab he just did. That it's like the level of aggression, it's meant to be like, this man is a predator. He is the top of the top. He is the peak of the peak. He's extremely aggressive and he comes off a certain way. And I think the music is also trying to evoke that. Like, again, badass trigger, badass with a gun. And I get it, like, in the sense that it's kind of giving what people think of Silas, like that edgy mafioso, but also it's an identity he perpetuates, but also he uses to his own ends. And he wears quite a few identities, not necessarily to the same degree that we kind of see Xavier or Raphael or Zane as per se, but he does wear his identities in a very smart and calculated way. And what I also really appreciate is the small little devil horns, because it's a very cute ode to Abyssum Sovereign, but also his more demonic and especially his fiend nature. And especially with the whole concept of a devourer, having these visuals that right here, like having these visuals that evoke this idea of a predator really works towards his benefit. And they're very much highlighting his desire eye, which is his right eye, again, works to where his wing is. So it seems like a lot of his higher self and energy is based within the right side of his body than the left. I love that gesture. A dude whose whole motif in this song is about a gun, like, I love it. I'm sorry. Like, I don't have anything proper to say about it. It's just so smart. It's like literally like being in the head with a gun. He's like clawing up himself. He's so arrogant. He's extremely confident. And I think it really works for his draconic nature. Like, dragons are known for being very prideful creatures. And even within, quite interestingly, it says, A breathtaking glimpse reveals the passing shadow of a dragon. It's really reinforcing that. And again, Mephisto also being on that sleeve where we're perceiving that there could potentially be a feather. The Infold never do anything without a lot of intentionality here. I think there's a lot to consider. And again, like one of his earrings being called Raven's Flight, and it's once again asymmetrical. Obviously it's on the other side, but I think that's more so for visual balance because there's a lot more red on the side and there's a lot more black on the side. There's a lot of intentionality here across the board. And then him grabbing the camera. This is where the song actually starts to take a bit more of a serious turn. Passion, my desire is making me crazy. It's quite literally, again, this is echoing exactly what happens in Innocent Birdcage, which is also echoing exactly what happens in Abyssum Sovereign, where Silas is overtaken by his desire and his more animalistic, brutal nature, and something that MC then has to overcome. Within Abyssum Sovereign, she didn't get to make that choice. He made that choice for her, and it was very self-sacrificial and sweet. In Tomorrow's Catch-22, it takes a little bit more paying attention, but it is echoing a similar principle of what he had reinforced for her, that she has to prioritize herself. And so it became an instinct that she's going to protect herself in the tragic end of that card if you do get the bad end. It's also reinforcing how she is the thing that makes him crazy, and she is the thing that makes him lose sight of what necessarily he wants to be doing or who he is. Like, his priorities from being so extremely selfish and greedy kind of switch over to caring more about her, and a level of selflessness he probably didn't expect within himself. And I find that quite intriguing to explore, especially because it seems like they cultivate that greed within themselves and each other in their relationship. It's like being perceived by the camera, throwing it away because it's throwing away the identity that everyone else has projected onto him. And then the shush gesture. And this works again because they have to keep their relationship under wraps. You know, like they carry on having to do covers. MC consistently carries on being so worried about being found with Silas, or essentially Silas getting found out, because obviously he's an extremely wanted gentleman by her own faction. They've got that whole Romeo and Juliet aspect happening within their relationship. So again, it's like that sneaky, undercover, dark relationship that they're really delving into a bit more. And all of this feels very seductive. I'm not going to lie. Yes, it is giving toothless mating dance. But I'm not mad at it. But also, I feel this visual specifically. Hold on. Right here, this entire section, other than the fact that he has a crazy amount of sex appeal, it's also evoking to me, again, that imagery from Innocent Birdcage, where his hands were above his head and she was taking control of the situation because she was trying to find his activator. And it's quite interesting that we go from that visual of him having his hands over his head, appearing to be powerless, and then him grabbing his own throat as if his own desire is consuming him and his own desire is kind of going beyond what he even wants. I like that gesture, like he's struggling and he's fighting with it. And that's something that we've seen, again, across both of those cards, because it is a bit of a core aspect of his character. Just that animalistic instinct and how he kind of navigates it. All of these things are just reinforcing devouring and the consumption and greed. And I think that one of the easiest ways to kind of represent that greed is within that consumption. And his struggle with it is really coming down to his neck. We have seen a lot of prioritization of the neck area for Silas across some of his cards. You know, in the beginning of the game, he grabs and holds on to MC. In Innocent Birdcage, I'm pretty sure he holds onto her neck. In Magnum Opus, he has a whole sequence where he like slides MC's finger across his neck and tells her where to strike to take someone down, which is a very interesting thing to say in the middle of that card because it was quite romantic. But then, of course, Silas is being rough, and you could be like, oh, maybe he's being rough because he's like mafia and he's like a rough, edgy guy. No, 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 no. I think he's referring to something a bit more, especially when you take into account one of the things from Abyssal Chaos is a dove with its neck slit. Definitely feels like it's some like calling deeper into a revelation we will get a bit later, potentially with their next myth. And like, oh, if you're scared, you won't survive. And again, it's him rubbing his own mouth as if he's just eaten another prey. And we do know he also eats protocols, which really adds to the power aspect of his character and his desire for power. Now, I want to say the fact that basically not caring what other people are going to think about their relationship, everyone else can get out of the way when it just comes to what's between the two of them. And then this, I love the fact that it says bow down to the boss and it centralizes MC. Now, I do understand that Silas is an extremely dominating character. He is on top. He is the head of Unakiness. He owns the N109 zone, basically. And he's generally in positions of leadership. He's very in control. But when it comes to MC, there's this dynamic more of equality, and they both kind of are fighting for control in a very fun game between the two of them. He kind of mentors her within that greed, and there's something that he then revels in seeing her being more and more willing to take. And I feel like you definitely see that across Abyssum Sovereign and his Tomorrow's Catch-22 card, Innocent Birdcage. And you really see it within this whole sequence that we're about to go through with Silas MC. It feels like she's controlling the movements and he's letting it happen, but then they're both kind of fighting for control in a very fun and equal dynamic. So he's controlling it there. Her heart, she's loose. Then she goes in and grabs his neck. This is not choking, by the way. She's literally just grabbing his neck. And look at, I know that man is happy. Look at him. He's smiling. He's holding her hand. He finds it cheeky. He finds it cute. And I think that's the thing. He's looking at her with pride in what he's helped solidify within her. This is what I'm getting from him. And then he flicks her hand away. And then he leads. Oh, I love this whole section. He grabs her hand. They synchronize, and he kind of like then takes control for a moment. And then they sway together. This specific visual right here of them both lifting a gun at the same time is something that I love. It really reminds me of, I think it's Night of Secrecy, but essentially there is a card where they are doing a bit of a competition to see who can put a gun together fastest. And MC wins. And I just love that dynamic, because even though Silas doesn't actually fight with guns, other than like in Death and Rebirth did we finally get to actually see him do it, other than like verbally throughout the game. But this just really speaks to that whole aspect that they're both a badass with the gun. They had that moment of that sensuality between the two of them, and then it goes back into how they are perceived by everyone else. She flips him to the side. He falls down to his knees because of her. She is the one thing that he is weak to, and he's an extremely strong and powerful man. But that's his weakness, and within that weakness is also a mutuality and a strength. It's a very powerful relationship. And then her lifting his head again. This man is happy about it, and this also mirrors the exact same way that he lifts her head when they first meet in long-awaited revelry. He is enjoying this control play between the two of them. He just looks so magnificent here. And then finally, it's her kind of giving into his whims, but they look so beautiful. We've got black feathers once again and flower petals everywhere, very heavily evoking that imagery from Beyond Cloudfall. We still don't have the black feathers from Beyond Cloudfall explained, or even the black feathers that are across Silas's motif explained. And I do think that's going to happen soon. But I feel like this visual right here is very beautifully kind of paying ode to mutuality of their relationship, but also it's kind of like a reverse of the Abyssum Sovereign situation, in the sense that he was the one on the ground and he was dying, and then that field of flowers emerged, as opposed to, in this situation, she seems to be the one who's succumbing. And so far, we have noticed a bit of a theme where it's MC at least dying one way or another, and in Xavier's situation, it was a bit of an exception where they both died together. But I am curious as to what's going to happen with Silas's situation, because things are not being painted with a positive motif so far. He's so cool. I can't. Okay, so Raphael's song is called Ignited Echoes, and that's also what his card is called. We're going to deconstruct this dance actually from where it is. So as we already discussed, the set, the Fallen Chandelier, and it starts off cool-toned. Now this is giving the sea before the blood sacrifices. This seems to be speaking to who Raphael appears to be without MC, and kind of where what I've noticed is there's a bit of a pattern when it comes to all of these songs. It kind of goes from the love interests by themselves, how they are thinking of or approaching that dynamic with MC, and then it's finally with her. Already there's so much to say. Falling, falling through the night, calling, calling for your light, hiding what I feel. Quite explicitly, we know that Raphael is someone who does hide what he feels. And I think people often can get lost within that extroverted appearance and guise that he wears. But it's also, he can be more open and himself when it comes to MC and people he feels comfortable with. But it's kind of interesting because he appears like an extrovert to people who don't know him, but he's actually an introvert. And then you get to know him a bit more, and then that other underlying extroversion is only exclusively a bit more for her. It's not for other people, so I don't really think that counts as true extroversion. I do think that Raphael also does have the most technical dance overall. He requires a lot of fluidity, there's a lot of speed, and there's a lot of swift synchronization he needs. What I find interesting though, obviously the hiding what I feel is quite explicit in your face. Now, then it says, but you pull me near, and we see him do this like neck gesture. You notice him do a similar gesture and even something with his entire body later on in the dance, where essentially it's like he's being pulled in different directions. And it's like, because of his own desires, he goes into one way, and then because of what he owes to his people and his own anger and frustrations that he feels to what's happened to his people, it pulls him another way, and then his own feelings for MC pull him another way. He's going through a lot of different dynamics until he finally succumbs to his feelings for her. Oh, just that whole part was so like K-pop. I love it so bad. But also, like speaking to his outfit right now, we've got an infinity loop right here. And then we also have this entire like pearl beaded chain situation. Reminds me of in LSG, his outfit also had these gorgeous details around the top of his tail. And that's kind of what this is mirroring to me. We're just going to loop back there. Now, that whole sequence is where we transform from outward appearance of Raphael, extroverted, louder, and it is just, again, still speaking to his feelings because it's saying, again, only with MC does he feel like he can truly be himself. But the red, we go from blue to red, and it really works for his eyes because he obviously goes from this blue to this pinkish red color. And this is where we start getting to that siren, those overlay, like we hear like within the track, there's like this spooky kind of eerie sound in the background. Things appear more ominous, the lights have gone down, and even the water at the bottom, oh my god, just seeing like these ripples, genius set design on whoever decided to make that. But again, it's Raphael being pulled one way, and then him being switched, and then pulled to another way. Oh, it's just so genius, and it's him kind of like struggling between the different facets of who he is till he just succumbs. And then when he succumbs to the ground, everything turns red. And another core visual that we obviously saw when the game released during the release trailer was a statue of a Lemurian crying, and then there was blood coming down them.
And this time, an oath will be sworn with Lemuria's blood. Let's reshape destiny.
And we already have seen kind of the significance of that a bit more with LSG, but I think it's definitely speaking into the importance of Raphael's blood and essentially the desire from Eva and his immortality being tied to his blood. But also, there is a kindredness between him and MC when they created their heart bond, which is also a mark etched across both of their souls. And obviously the heart is where you have a big concentration of blood, and he did also stab her in the chest. So there's quite a few different variables here, and I do think this is going to be speaking to a greater sacrifice that we see from Raphael in the future for an upcoming myth, but I'm going to save that for a later conversation. But look at him, he's just succumbing to it. And then that makes him resolute. This, I want to be bad with you. Essentially, I want to go against the constraints and what I should be doing and my responsibilities because I want to be with you. Ooh. And I know we do see him kind of reference, and we'll touch on it a little bit later when it comes to his actual more intimate section. But I do feel like this is quite explicitly speaking about his character and the struggles of his character. And again, his head being twisted one way, then the other way, and like he's looking at us, but he's actually looking at MC. It's kind of the seduction that he's just giving into those feelings, and those feelings make him feel resolute, as we then see with the next gesture. Fist up in the air and then comes back down as he gets up. This is him like getting up with a new sense of self and a new, greater and deeper motive for his actions. And you just, oh, the increase in the power. And then again, like this gesture right here, like all of that power being cultivated into his chest and then pulling him into another direction. It's quite literally like his bond towards MC, and his heart bond is pulling him into a different direction from what he should be wanting. And I just love that they both run to each other. And then the dialogue. I just love that. It literally, what they ran to each other, and then it's no place to run. And then again, his fire comes out, his evil. It obviously speaks to the fire of Lemuria, but then also his own fire and his own sense of self and their own passions. Ooh. And lose my mind, I'll come undone. It reminds me of what happened in God of Tides that we only learn about in LSG, Lemurian Sea God Myth, where Raphael loses kind of some of his autonomy because of the flames of Lemuria and what is wanted from him as a sea god when it comes to MC, but he can't allow himself to do it. And so he is coming undone at the seams. Her hand over his chest where his bond is, then he gently and playfully taps over her chest, like, oh, across both of where their hearts would be, perfection. And then especially her dress at the bottom here, I think this visual right here is quite explicitly looking like not only his paintings, but it also reminds us of the fact that she has also been a sacrifice. Like, this blood can be perceived as Raphael's blood, but it can also be perceived as her blood that she decided to spill in a previous incarnation. There is a lot to consider here, and I just think that it's genius. They thought through this so well. It's so stunning. And I just really, to be honest, I just really love this whole watercolory, oil painting-y vibe to it. Again, the levels on their dance and their synchronization, literally, I feel like this is genuinely the most complicated dance across the five, but... And again, touch and go. Again, we see her putting her hand over his chest and then him doing, again, another playful tap over hers. There's, again, a lot of mutuality in their bond, and there's a lot of giving and taking. And I love this whole gesture of, like, him kind of leading her and then her walking back, but her hands on top of him. It's like, even if she seems like the subservient party, she still holds the reins in the relationship, and that's just so strong. And then he walks back again, like there's this level of equality. Ah! I love it so bad. They look so good. I can't wait to see my MC in this situation, and I love this for everyone who's going to be pulling. As discussed earlier, his track is called Offbeat Track, which obviously feels like a reference to the Backtrackers, and obviously Offbeat is kind of playing a bit more on the musical aspect of the banner. There's already so much to say. He does so much of this shush gesture across this entire dance, and you notice quite a few times. I loved that whole sequence already. Like, what a strong start, and they're really selling Xavier as a visual already to go in. What I noticed immediately when it came to Xavier's song, it immediately made me think of Daft Punk, and Daft Punk have a sci-fi kind of theme to them, and on top, like, sci-fi futuristic theme to them, but then also the music is very funky, and it's very timeless in that way, and that's what really works for Xavier. I feel like Xavier would listen to Daft Punk because it is just kind of that futuristic-y but also timeless, like late 90s kind of vibe, like, I don't know, 70s, 80s kind of vibe. I might be completely off, but they're just giving that specific genre of time. Daft Punk will never ever go out of style. I don't care. I will die on that hill. But the song lyrics already, can I just hold you close? Now, already, all of these visuals are selling. Obviously, Xavier as a visual is selling that he is a visual. And also the very sneaky heart on his chest. Okay, I see you, you freak. But it's like him pulling us in close. And it's a secret. And he does this a lot. The little shh makes me very much think of two specific things. One, it makes me think of when you begin the game and you first meet Xavier, you're dealing with Luminivores and Wanderers by yourself on your first mission with him. And he kind of like says, like he shushes you. That was like one of the first kind of impressions I had of his character and the first visual I had of his character. And as someone who's extremely secretive, they kind of sell that quite quickly about him. Furthermore, that's then reinforced where in Light Seeker Myth, I'm pretty sure he does another similar thing where he tells MC to be quiet as he's like sneaking away when he should not be, and she carries on covering for him. Again, like they're really like quite explicitly enforcing that mysterious aspect to his character. And it's like, come over here, and he's like gesturing all over his body. He wants her to come to him. Just okay. Okay, Xavier. So him saying, why don't you just come over here? I don't want to waste a moment without you near. Don't want to waste a moment already makes us think of his capabilities of he literally went back in time for MC. He can also, with his light evil, travel at the speed of light or beyond the speed of light and also change how he sits within time, which is something that we kind of saw with the train. So he doesn't want to waste a further moment, even despite his very complicated and interesting relationship with time. But also like come over here and just kind of gesturing to this moment right now, and him kind of going down and touching that starry sea that he has traversed for her. And he wants her to be here, right here next to him. I just, ugh. The way they are physically reinforcing the lyrics is quite fun to see. I really love that visual of him just kind of embracing the light, especially because his evil is light. And obviously we can see a bit more of his whole costume. The thing that I especially really appreciated is across his costume, it's giving that high school aesthetic. Like this is like this half feels like a bit more like a school uniform. And this half being like denim and lace and these other textures is a bit more casual in nature, like his current style, and a bit more rugged. And just seeing these two aspects is like a marrying of what he kind of chooses to be in the aspects of his character he continues to adopt, as opposed to that more princely identity that he decided to leave behind. And obviously we just have so many star motifs, so many like planety motifs. It's just so genius. And I feel like this entire song really feels like disco, school disco, funky, timeless, Daft Punk, and just very bright and hopeful about their future together. Because if you're lonely late at night and you need me by your side, and that really hits, especially because Xavier as a character has been extremely lonely, and he's kind of worn that loneliness and that solitude by himself. And I think, again, it's kind of sometimes very self-imposed because he decides to be so secretive, and that's just a very big complexity of his character. But it's also him bearing the burden because he thinks he has to. And the way he was taught to bear the burden and the burdens he was taught to kind of adopt are not the ones that he necessarily ended up adopting, but they still... That psyche of a ruler still sits within him. That heavy is the head that wears the crown motif is still very strong within his character nonetheless. Now, I loved that whole sequence with the lyrics. So it was like saying, if you're lonely late at night and you need me by your side, you know where to find me. This is explicitly touching on the fact that Xavier and MC have this whole motif of they will always find each other, explicitly talking about finding each other. It's also something that we literally just saw with his 2025 birthday card. At the beginning of the KOD myth, he was essentially vowing to find her again. And even during the event, there was this very beautiful artwork of him essentially finding her, as well as in the Lightseeker myth, he actually rescues MC from Starfall Forest. And it's just, regardless of how she incarnates or where, Xavier has this magnetism towards her. And so far, we don't know if there is some other bigger tie between the two of them. We already have an exchanging of half of each other's souls, a soul-heart bond, a intertwined fates dynamic, as well as from the same source with the other love interest. But Xavier doesn't explicitly have ties like that, and I feel like personally it does make his character a bit more distinct because he is making that conscious choice to be doing all of this for MC with kind of like no other aspect. but just out of pure love. And I really kind of like that aspect about his character. I feel like it kind of keeps him a bit more distinct. But the fact that he will, no matter the circumstances or any other grander schemes at play, he will always find his way to her. I find that very, very strong and compelling about their story. As well as this section right here. What I love about the it all just reminds me, the small gap and then the second reminds me being softer, it feels like he's kind of thinking to himself. And like the first reminds me is like, oh, it's reminding him and it's quite bright. That softer second remind me alongside this schoolboy aesthetic really calls into When Shooting Stars Fall, that third Xavier anecdote, which does go into his time being a school student and when he met an earlier incarnation of MC. Now, we don't know if this is the first time he ever came across an MC, but it's what we've inferred so far. That could change. There's a lot more to that anecdote that still feels mysterious, but again, he's extremely secretive, so we will probably find out later. But you'll notice with that reminds me, it is something that they do quite a bit, where they do repeat some aspects of the lyrics as if it is even the lyrics backtracking a little bit. All times, that's once again going into that whole repetition. And I like the fact that that necktie motif is kind of like him being pulled again, like similar to Raphael, pulled into a direction because of his attraction and his affiliation towards MC. And that playfulness, and regardless of the direction he's meant to be in, he's kind of being pulled into another direction because of what his heart wants. Sorry, he looks so cute and bright here. Like this entire song feels extremely optimistic and bright, and just looking how cute he is. Ah! I love this whole "and I just need you tonight." He's kind of welcoming her onto the stage with him, and he's so happy and cute. And then she comes in and again, like reinforcing that whole school uniform aspect. This literally looks like a school uniform. Like obviously it's stylized and a bit more modern. It really is as if they got a bit more of a happy ending towards that anecdote. Just the lyrics here, "You're the one I always fantasize." Like it's always her. And he's always the same one for her in a Xavier route. And I just love that about their dynamic. It's just so cute in the mirroring. Oh god. See, the only, once again, we've got that third kind of repetition. There's a lot of repetition of the word you because it's only her. She is the focus. She is the reason and the end. The music note also kind of reminds how music is used as a theme for Xavier. We literally see that in the original animation for the game when you open up the screen, as well as for Silvery Polyphony. He literally plays their piece of music because he was trained in how to play on the piano. And again, in his 2025 birthday card, we hear different kinds of sounds across his journey in the universe that Xavier has experienced. Sorry, it's such a catchy song. This is wild. I was like, oh, this is such a catchy song. It's so bright. And then I love this though, because this is wild. They would get cancelled for doing this, like on TV. The mutuality of their dynamic is really seen there. Like, and also, you notice how both of them have gloves on the opposite hands, and it really speaks to, again, like, they are two stars pointing in the same direction. They are both, like, matching the other's half, and they are both, like, partners. And it's just so beautiful, and it really reminds me of that Light Seeker ending Ultimate animation, where they both got their swords out to the side after they've just ended an enemy. It's just so beautiful. It's such an extremely bright and extremely fun song. But like, again, when you break down those lyrics, it's just that chorus specifically is really re-emphasizing how crucial she is as a deciding factor to everything that he's deciding to do. And I think that's really beautiful. The level of integrity of Xavier's character to go through with his decisions, despite what it takes out of him and despite how much it grates on him and how many years he's been alive, really like speaks to his wisdom, but speaks to his integrity. And despite him being so much older, look how young and fun this is. When you see the costume like this, it really further sells that whole school aesthetic, like that tie again. And obviously it looks like his birthday outfit. Certain aspects of his birthday outfit that seem to carry over. It seems like a part of him is maybe even stuck during that time. but it was a positive beginning for him in terms of his affection for MC. And then obviously we've got like a lot of stars going across the motif, the starburst trace that's across his face, and just like stars like literally everywhere. They're really reinforcing the star motif, but then again, that's core to him, so it's not really too surprising. And just being able to see her outfit like this is very explicit visually how much this looks like a school uniform. It's very, very fancy, of course, and it's quite modern, and this doesn't look like any actual feasible school uniform from this day and age. However, it really works for the visuals they were trying to go for, and I love this outfit, especially with the stars on the back right here. It really makes me think of the amount of stars that they then saw during that meteor shower, both within the anecdote but also during his birthday, and I think that's a really beautiful way to pay an ode to their experience together. Also, punctual starlight is very funny because like the stars appeared just on time for the both of them. And then to Caleb. Just the power of this. I have to say, my adoration for Caleb went up like through the roof during this entire thing. Like I already loved Caleb. My love for him just emboldened further because there was something so charming about seeing him in his element, and passionate overload feels like a very accurate way to kind of speak on what it felt like what was happening in that dance. There was just so much energy. Immediately I'm gonna pause and immediately we're gonna backtrack. We start off with the whirring sound, and it literally makes me think of an engine or a piece of machinery turning on, which works for both parts of Caleb, both in terms of, again, aviation, him being a fast-paced fleet colonel, him being in the DAA, him also then having that cyborg element, that cybernetically enhanced element, the android aspect, like all of that really comes together. And the way he's like twirling around also makes me think of the fans on a CPU, like and the fans in an engine. Like it's just so smart the way they started that song, and then like you just hear that whirring sound, which just further reinforces what's happening visually in the setting, visually what he's doing, and then you hear it orally. It's just so smart to start off that way. And then immediately the lyrics being like, loving you so wrong, but I can't hide it. Now, we already know that Caleb MC have Adam and Eve parallels. And so us starting off by enforcing that, oh, it's so wrong, but I can't hide it, and doing the wrong thing. Now, apologies for my pronunciation, but Caleb's name in Chinese is Xia Yizhou. The first Chinese character used for Eve's name is the same Chinese character used for Caleb's name. And I find that quite intriguing when you could take into consideration that essentially Caleb is meant to be Eve because he was XO2, number 2, and MC was A01, like Adam, number 1, because he came from her. Like, and it's just reinforcing the idea that MC, like there's a bit of a switch in the gender roles in terms of their Adam and Eve retelling, and her being Adam, thus he is Eve who bit the forbidden apple. And you notice this, like this is reinforced literally just now visually with like loving you so wrong, but I can't hide it. And so he eats the forbidden apple because he can't help himself but fall for her. Because technically the two of them are meant to be the perfect weapons against each other. Thus, their relationship is somewhat doomed from the start. Incredibly smart. So smart. And I also think that having the choker around his neck like this, and it appears to look like, obviously a bit like an infinity loop, but it also kind of looks like a double helix. And it's kind of to do with genetics, right? And so this works for the whole aspect of, again, Caleb MC being like Adam and Eve, but then also it works for the aspect of essentially them coming from the same source, which is something that was also said during the decoherence myth. So it really plays into those themes of their characters and like the struggle that he has to deal with, and it literally being a constraint around his neck, but still within himself, he can't help himself but consume that desire. And it's like him literally having to wear this mask, and then he finally lets it go and throws it off because he's now done living in the darkness. Oh, just that whole part where he like grabs it. Oh, okay, he's about to punch me. But like, just that whole part where he like grabs his choker. This part. Like talking about secrets and then him grabbing this like double helix choker and pushing it to the side of his neck. They're tied to each other. It can kind of be seen as like this choker, this thing that's restraining him. And then him pulling it, it's kind of like showcasing that restraint that he then lets go of. I feel like the lyrics are quite explicit and hitting you over the head with it, what they're trying to say. Their love is forbidden. They have to be secretive about their own feelings. They can't really give into anything. And so obviously, naturally, what we actually saw happen in the game is they were given the opportunity to be able to move forward in their relationship into a new sphere while still honoring their past. And this whole forbidden taste, once again, the forbidden apple, the apple that he was not meant to have, really reinforcing the Adam and Eve aspect of their story. Once again, showcasing him devouring that desire that's deep within him, and it's going down and it turns into a game of a seduction. And also you can see how the light's kind of gone darker now. It's not as bright towards his face because this is like the more secretive aspect that he's keeping within himself. Oh, his dance is so good. He's got so much energy. I feel like literally Raphael and Caleb are the ones with the most energy within their dances, and it really works for their characters. Ooh, those guns. And again, I just love how the different ways they beckon MC into their respective dances. It's the way Xavier kind of welcomed her onto the stage, and then Caleb is like, come on, follow my lead. It's kind of reinforcing Caleb as that older figure that MC grew up with, that she knows she can trust, and he will take the lead and he will look after her. There's a bit more mutuality in the energy in their current dynamic now. Just like right here, okay. Like, they're both looking at each other, the sparks in the background. Obviously, they're really reinforcing the whole technological aspect, but it's kind of like them nodding and kind of acknowledging each other. This obviously also looks like an infinity loop, which then mirrors what's going on with his neck, but then also could be like a double helix. It works both ways, in my opinion. I like how he's like, take control, don't worry, I got you. Like even though he's obscuring her vision, she completely trusts him. And so there's like that level of mutuality and trust is something they've cultivated over years of knowing each other. Oh, I just love this part because it's like them going in for an almost kiss, but then not giving into it. Ooh, it's like the struggle of their dynamic and how much they had to push and pull to finally get to where they are. And again, it's like, oh, that I'm a leader, just follow my lead. Oh, it's so catchy. But also the way it's kind of, even though she's in front, she's also the one pushing him back. Like, he's still going to adhere to her whims. And this is such a yearner look from Caleb. Like, it's giving me, like, reminiscence to so many of his, like, standard 5 stars. Like, show you what I'm made of. And obviously, he's also been reconstructed to a degree. But also, it's meant to be like, I can show you what I'm actually about. And then taste of your forbidden. Again, that forbidden apple. I can do it all if you're by my side. I like the finality of this visual because, again, it's talking about him taking the lead. And then finally, it's kind of him looking up at her because, again, she is what he is, like, he cares about so much and he holds her to such a high regard. And I really, really appreciate the outfits because they really play into his, like, fun, cool boy, kind of roguish vibe here. And, she matches him so, so well. But MC's outfit is giving such perfect C-pop, K-pop, J-pop, and that skirt is literally timeless. Like, this specific skirt silhouette has been used timelessly. I want to say like from the like mid 2000s onwards in like Eastern pop spheres. So I just love it so badly. And then obviously the paint on his face and stuff like that kind of speaks a bit more to the military aspect. But then obviously there's like boyish roguishness. One thing to also appreciate is the fact that it's his real arm that's primarily showing, and then it's his cyborg arm, which is kind of a bit more hidden. So it's kind of like him showcasing more of who he actually is and hiding away the aspect that doesn't feel as true to who he is. And now we're going to quickly loop back a bit and we're going to go into Zayn's.
So gentle and calm, that's what they say, yeah. Inside, try to tame a storm, but every look from you makes it hard to control. And shadows don't wait when darkness falls. I'll show the flame I got inside the walls between us.
So, as already discussed, his song is called Chilling Crescendo, and a crescendo is the loudest point reached in a gradually increasing sound, or the highest point reached in a progressive increase of intensity. Which is quite interesting because his song, compared to the others, is a bit more mellow and calm, but the lyrics and the dance is saying so much, and it's so delicious when it all comes together. Also, one thing that already makes Zayn a bit more distinct when it comes to the other love interest is he does not have earrings. Even though he does have like some glittery aspects under his eyes, like the other love interest, he's not wearing earrings, but he's actually got an earpiece on, and then he's also got his glasses on, which again, they're going to be selling that whole Megane glasses wearing smart stoic Kudera energy. But also just the heartbeat, because it's called Heartbeats Ablaze. He's a cardiac surgeon. I'm going to touch a little bit more on his costume and design a little bit later. Now, we're immediately going to go back because there's so much to say already. The song starts off and it sounds like further away, we're hearing a older version of Zayn be singing Drag You Far From Time and Space. And this loops then in to where his song ends up. And I think that's extremely intentional. We're going to go into what it's necessarily trying to say. But his moves here, it's like he was going one way. He turns back and sees her and it changes his direction. And all of his moves are very like precise. It's every single move is on the beat, and it speaks to the orderly aspect of Zayn, as well as he's the only one wearing an earpiece, and this works to him being a cardiac surgeon in the sense that he would have to listen to the beats of someone's heart, playing into the whole first meeting again in the main story where he's listening to MC's heart with a stethoscope. And then also we've got like a heartbeat ripple on the side of his costume here. You will see a bit more clearly later, and obviously across his glasses. And it's just so genius. It's so genius to me how they kind of played on that aspect, because now you know, like, now I want you to watch this sequence knowing that he's hitting the beat and you will not be able to unsee it. And it actually is very intentional for then how his dance progresses.
I'm playing it nice, normal on display. So gentle and calm, that's what they say, yeah. Inside, try to tame a storm, but every look from you makes it hard to control.
So that entire sequence, he was dancing on the beat. And what we're actually going to now go into is like some of the moves. Now, first thing you'll notice, there's also a heart on his back. This made me scream because obviously we already know the importance of the heart, as we were talking about. Like, MC has a heart condition. Heart's obviously associated with love. It works for all the guys, especially then when it comes to Zayn as a cardiac surgeon, heartbeats, etc. But then also it's him not wearing his heart on his sleeve. It's not him wearing his heart completely out in the open. His heart's on his back. It's a bit more hidden. It's something that he kind of like, he doesn't necessarily show as easily, but it's still there. And it's just, obviously this is not the side where your heart is actually on. It would be on the other side, but I think this was more so for like to balance the visuals a little bit better. And then just his like him kind of beating up his own heart. It's so gentlemanly and it's so controlled. I think his entire dance exudes a lot of control, and it's not control necessarily in the dynamics that Silas MC kind of play with. It's more so control in the dynamics of having control over oneself and also being a bit more of an orchestrator. And we're going to dissect those lyrics a bit more because they are so explicitly hitting you over the head with the fact that Zayn is not what he appears to be, and this is what the song is further reinforcing.
I'm playing it nice, normal on display.
Like, those lyrics are literally telling you he's playing it nice. He appears very gentle and calm. that's what other people say about him.
So gentle and calm.
And what's interesting is on the calm, he's like essentially going through that kind of crazy gesture. Like his head is actually going through a lot and he's struggling a lot, but he appears calm. It furthers this thing that I've always been saying about Zayn: very still waters run deep. And again, you kind of see like a really cute heart on the lower side of his back. He's so adorable.
That's what they say.
And then that's what they say. And what's really interesting is that during
That's
that,
what they say.
during this, it's him being shackled on the back. And now there's two specific instances. Again, this is going to call back to, similarly to what I was saying about Silas, in my opinion. So one is obviously Fulcia, because Zayn was shackled during the Fulcia myth. And it appeared as if it was kind of like he was shackling himself, but actually he wasn't shackling himself. He was under service and his autonomy was stripped by Astra. And another situation we then saw again of like him appearing to be revoking his own control, but it was a bit more of a complex dynamic, is again during his own Catch-22 card, Immediate Disorder, where he helps MC tie him to a chair while he is about to go into a frenzy. And he's going to be unable to completely, quote-unquote, control himself. But quite literally, those lyrics are telling you, other people see him as gentle and calm, and he's always in control, and he has to try and always be in control. But there's a lot going on underneath the surface, and there's a lot more depth, and there's a lot more of a struggle that he just handles by himself.
Yeah. Inside, try to tame a storm.
Literally taming the storm. And this obviously makes me think of snowstorms, the snowstorm of when they were 12 years old, and Zayn, unfortunately, MC. But also that storm speaks to his feelings. There's something that he cannot control. He said this before: if it was love, he wouldn't be able to control it. And he can't control his own evil. He has an unstable evil. It's just like he can't control his love for MC.
But every look from you makes it hard to control.
And then this whole, like, every look from you makes it hard to control. And so he was the only one wearing glasses, and he threw away his glasses because he doesn't care about seeing anything else. He just wants to see her. Zayn is technically short-sighted. He can't really see from far away, but he doesn't want to see far into the future. He's looking at what's in the moment right now. And what he wants in the moment currently is just her. And dancing for Zayn MC is a bit more of a core theme that we've seen it across a lot of their content, from the standard Fulcia myth, the first in-game event during Valentine's Day, the Master of Fate myth where she dances for him in absolute zeal, and the Witness by Deepspace card, Iceborne War.
And shadows awake when darkness falls, I'll show the flame of...
Obviously extremely sensual, but then she saunters in.
Shadows awake.
And he's walking back. It's not necessarily revoking control, but it's entering their duet and like how important dancing is between the two of them. You then hear that playful aspect come into the music. And that's what she brings into his life. This vivacity, this chaos. He opens himself up to and welcomes because he adores her so deeply, and how he just changes his worldview and his order.
When darkness falls, I'll show.
Also, that was just crazy. Like them doing that whole motion, then him repeating that motion as she then goes and drops down like this. Crazy, crazy. But also, another thing I really adore right here is you can see how their outfits really mirror each other. In the sense that they both got this long lace strip. They both have this kind of halter neck design. And they both also have a long sleeve. So there's a lot of mirroring between the two of their outfits. Again, like I really love how they incorporated the mutuality of the outfits for all the different love interests. One thing that I also particularly really loved about Zayn's MCs is the fact that this is also, this exact silhouette, and you'll notice it from the front as well, is a callback to Fulcia's MC, who is Gardner MC's actual outfit for the Fulcia companion.
When darkness falls, I'll show the flame I got inside.
So literally quite explicitly saying that only when it's between the two of us, I will show you essentially the fire within me, and like the more sensual and sexy aspects. Zayn is an extremely private person, and it just further is going into the contrast of his character. It's very much hitting you over the head with the contrast of his character.
When darkness falls, I'll show.
And also it's a very subtle way that Zayn kind of takes control and takes the lead in this dance.
The flame I got inside walls between us fade.
Now, I just want to quickly, really slowly break down that little part in between. And like her looking towards him, they look towards each other, and he just grabs her, and then she smiles. And like it's during that private moment that they go from just like their coordination into just a break moment where it becomes softer between the two of them. I love this section so much, and I just can't. It's just like that moment of peace and that chaos where they're not trying to hit any beat other than the beats of their own hearts, and then this happens, and it's Zayn pulls her to him as the lyrics are saying, "Drag you far from time and space." Genius, because he's dragging her to him. This really speaks to Zayn's selfishness and his avarice that I spoke on previously in my speculation video for GOA. And by God, was that not only further validated to the max in the actual GOA myth, but also there's implications to these lyrics. And it's not just speaking in a bit more of a retrospective or current situation. It is kind of giving the suggestion that Zayn's selfishness made him create consequences with MC, which are pretty immense to think about because they haven't necessarily been explicitly confronted. Because the suggestion of the lyrics are, Zayn took MC from wherever she was to drag her to be in his time and space to be in the same world as him, and it's a dangerous situation, and he's kind of going from someone who was so immensely in control, so quote-unquote tamed, to being untamed. And just like, it's the way he kind of leads her throughout with these subtle gestures, really like reinforces that messaging of him dragging her, and this kind of like extreme sensual tie that they have between them. And we also know they have that golden string of fate between the two of them because of their intertwined fates dynamic. And the way he just like, oh God, like, sorry, this part right here. His hands are like right there, and then he just very lightly flicks his fingers, it feels like, just to twirl her, and then she commits to the full movement. It's such a beautiful marrying of his subtle gestures that kind of evoke that leadership in this dance, and her also just then succumbing and just fully giving into the dance. It's just like this very, very beautiful way that they kind of play on the subtleties of him and the more emphasis and energy that she brings into the dance. Ooh, just that whole, oh God. And we already know that Zayn has a thing for a low back. Okay, we've seen that quite a few times. And then GOA with the back worship. But then also, this is an extremely sensual image of just seeing the two of them in his fingers like this. In his hands like over her like this. But also, I do want to point out the watch. And I thought that was a very interesting thing that was recognized. So one of my good friends, Lily, she managed to essentially point out what she thinks that this is inspired by, and it's the Perpetual Calendar Ultra Thin from Vacheron Constantine's Overseas collection. And not only is this a very expensive watch, but also she noticed it's from the chronograph series. Now a chronograph is a watch that is a normal watch, but also has stopwatch functionality, which is very interesting because during Zayn's birthday card, he talks about he wishes he could stop time.
If only I could freeze time. I would.
So it's quite interesting that he also has a watch which allows him to quote-unquote stop time and freeze time, essentially. At rank 200 with Zayn, you actually get a title called Millennium Pulse, as well as an avatar frame called Millennium Pulse, which again showcases this like frozen watch, and it's a blue watch, and again kind of speaks to the marrying of time and heart dynamics. So Millennium is like a period of 1,000 years. Pulse obviously speaks to that whole aspect of a heartbeat, and your actual pulse, but then also a heartbeat that goes beyond time and space. This kind of greater celestial quote-unquote beat. And I don't know, I feel like they're going to play on this a bit further when it comes to Zayn's later stuff, because he already has so many aspects that he can literally erase timelines. That was further canonized now in the most recent World Underneath update from Dusk to Autumn, with the explicit revelation from Shubaib, which was also suggested prior in DAR, but there was a bit of confusion around it. So there's already so much going on here very subtly. And this visual right here being the same face that he pulls during Tomorrow's Catch-22 card Immediate Disorder, and the same face he pulls in God of Annihilation myth Divine as Him. Genius. And him just very lightly grabbing her chin as she's getting up, and he's looking down at her like this, like, oh my God. The sensuality of this is just through the roof. And then their coordination.
test the limits, 'cause my secrets out.
And they do hit the beat during that little bit right there, but it's also just them also being just in tune to each other. And one thing I really did want to point out is, like, you notice there's a bit of a leopard print across both of their ties. And initially I was like, that's a bit random. But then I thought about it and I was like, hold on. I think that's a snow leopard pelt. And after literally just doing some search, you can see, yes, that is in fact a snow leopard pelt is what they were referencing with that. And the reason this hit so hard is because during Zane's Master of Fate myth, MC has a snow leopard called Hua. And that's like her companion, who she ends up leaving at the end of the myth. Is quite tragic. But it further cements and speaks to the intentionality of why this design choice is there. It's actually referring to Master of Fate, and you already get a lot of Master of Fate silhouettes with the kind of length that you see across his outfit. And then obviously there's the crystalline aspects that feel a bit more Forcia, but generally speak to his ice evil. Meanwhile, for MC, she's got a cold shoulder with a high neckline, which is the same as what she has for the Forcia MC companion. But the lace aspects are just speaking to this deeper level of sensuality. There's just so much going on here. And then obviously, like, there has to be a lot of crystals because there's a lot of bedazzling across all of the outfits. Zane's got an icy evil. They have to get a bit icy.
Everything that's wrong suddenly feels right.
Those lyrics are literally telling you that everything that's wrong, everything that was once order and the order that he abided by in the earlier sections where he was dancing to the beat, now being not on the beat and being on the off beat is what actually feels right to him, because he wants to be in the same tune as her.
It feels right. Let me come closer. I'll show you.
And so, just ending that with like this kind of promise of sensuality between the two of them at the end is very, very cute. And the one arm carry and just like his hand being out here as if he orchestrated the magic of all of this, which honestly he could have because of his ice evil, but it's just so stunning. I think this did a fantastic job just displaying their relationship, but also just like all of these aspects and the intentionality behind the lyrics and the dance really, really propelled this 1 minute sequence into just something that's so on another level. And I have to give a massive kudos to everyone who was behind this. Okay, we're gonna zoom now through the second section.
What if I told you it's not over?
Now, on MC's arm, it does look like, again, it looks like a bird, but then it also kind of looks like a dragon. It's quite an interesting shape, especially this thing right here. It does kind of look like a protocol, and what might kind of goes through my head is, if this is maybe even representative of Silas, and Silas eats protocols, this is kind of could play on the idea of a protocol being in his neck. As he's like digesting it.
I need you to take care of it for me.
His eye of desire kind of shining through.
Take care of it for me.
Ooh, it's been a long time since I've seen that. Then these two running away together, extremely cute. Once again, kind of calling into the way that, and a bit of a shift in the dynamics where originally during that third anecdote, she was the one that was leading them running away together. But another thing that mainly kind of intrigues me here is when she pushes him and then turns him around
For the rest of this night.
to then kiss on his lower back. What goes through my head is, during Tomorrow's Catch-22, everything comes back to Tomorrow's Catch-22, I swear to God. During Tomorrow's Catch-22, Xavier's activator was also on his lower back. And I also noted that when you look at Xavier's model with like either the swimwear sets or the towel sets, you'll notice there's also a very big like scar on his lower back. Now, I don't know if that's just because of the actors that they use for those mocappings, but also I feel that they do a lot intentionally. And there's certain like maybe marks or scuffs that could be just seen as like, you know, adding a bit more natural elements to the love interest. But for Zane, for example, his scars are extremely intentional. And with Xavier having been betrayed by a few backtrackers before, a part of me feels like this is kind of speaking to potentially like a bit more of a bigger revelation we're gonna get of like things that he's like gone through in the past.
You only belong to me.
I love a possessive Xavier moment.
You know, the way you danced was different from normal. Close the door.
Okay, Raphael and his sensuality with the LSG, the style necklaces, okay.
And I might become more dangerous.
And him saying that close the door, I might become more dangerous. They're in a stairwell. What door? But regardless, I will believe him. He's an, you know, Raphael is not one to be underestimated, especially if these eyes were looking at me. I would be deceased on the ground.
No one is going to interrupt us
This already is interesting to me because it seems everyone else's Kindle, like the central plots of their Kindles, takes place after the show, but this is Caleb kind of suggesting it happens before, so that's really interesting.
Can I mess you up a little more, please?
Just, oh my god, that entire sequence was absolutely insane. But really just, I feel like him just becoming more and more confident, kind of exerting himself and kind of enforcing himself in that romantic and sensual dynamic with her as their relationship progresses. Lipstick mark is crazy, by the way.
I'm not used to the lights.
Of course, the snow crest, we get it. I also think it's worth noting that when they decided to do essentially the reveal, they say a special invitation for Miss Hunter, Polar Night event invitation. As Polar Night falls, the whole city revels. Now, a Polar Night was explicitly referenced in Zayn's birthday card, where MC says that whenever she hears of a Polar Night, she's going to think of him. And so I also wonder, are they then going to actually make an explicit reference to the fact that she literally said that in their previous 5-star card? And I hope they do, because it's a level of continuity, but especially if their water is coming from Snowcrest.
I'm not used to the lights or the stage.
Now, Zayn saying I'm not used to the lights of the stage really feels like it's reinforcing the idea that this is our Zayn, in the sense that he's not used to being on the stage or doing things like this. But I'm still a little bit on the cusp of being confused with that, especially with what they decided to say for Raphael's description. So I'm going to kind of hold that to the side for now.
However, I like the feeling of
It's obviously, it could not be Zayn MC if they didn't have another dancing sequence, because now everyone's had a dancing sequence, so they must be like, of course, we must reinforce that Zayn MC are obsessed with dancing. And also, one thing that I also wanted to note, which is quite cute about Zayn and MC's outfit. As already discussed, Zayn doesn't have an earring. He's only using an earpiece. Again, it works for the whole stethoscope, doctor, beat dynamic. His MC, however, is the only one to have asymmetric earrings, so they work a bit differently. And this, again, I feel like speaks to her kind of like chaos and the way that she brings a whole different kind of order. And I feel like that aspect is only further reinforced because Zayn is wearing a full formal kind of two-piece set. Meanwhile, MC is wearing jeans at the bottom. And again, it speaks to kind of her bringing a bit more of a casual and informal, cheeky, flirty flair to their relationship dynamic, but she also can match his energy, as we see with the top.
I like the feeling of you only looking at me.
I really love how they're reinforcing his possessiveness, because he only wants the eyes he loves to see him, and that's something that he had previously already said during Fragrant Possession, and I really appreciate them continuing that avarice motif.
Before the city wakes up,
And then MC being
satisfy you.
on top, and then like the way it kind of glinted but to the other love interest is so smart. But then again, it kind of plays on those power dynamics by showing through levels who's kind of sitting in, not necessarily in a polarizing way. So she's kind of assumed a bit more power with all her little antics with the glasses.
There are other ways to remind me to take off my earpiece.
And then Zayn kind of comes in and takes over.
I could teach something out of all the adventure. I want to share the most intimate one with you.
I think the way they also transitioned into that, I feel like this is the first time it was the cleanest transition into showing the preview of the card. That was so well done.
Really? How can it possibly be a waste? I've always wanted to claim every part of you for myself.
That was so smooth, also, I must say. This is finally Caleb's moment. He finally gets his kinky card. We love that. Clap, 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 clap. He finally moved into proper relationship realm.
I waited so long.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. Before we leave, you better let us.
Raphael is crazy. This entire situation is insane to me, but also the body worship is crazy, and it's great. And I think all of us are having a fantastic time.
Be bad together.
And that obviously works for their song lyrics as well. Genius.
There is no darkness that could ever claim me.
I think him saying that line, and all she can see is Xavier, and then all of the lights going out. Oh my god. It's extremely frisky, but it's extremely so smart, and I'm just all over the place. I also think it's important to note that this entire dialogue also seems to speak to, obviously there's aspects of like, we just had him as King of Dark Knight and then we went through a whole regression slash reversion situation, and then she compared his secrets to dark matter in his birthday card, and now this whole dialogue feels like it's adding a whole level of intimacy and overlaying that intimacy into those dialogues about light and darkness that sit within Xavier's relationship.
Because my everything is for you to take.
And she's wild. You know what?
Yours.
Go off, Queen MC.
Taking the lead really is your specialty. You didn't want the whole night to end, right? Then I hope you remember every part of tonight, not just here.
Silas MC are crazy.
Here as well.
But okay, cool. That was all of those aspects. And now really, really quickly, we're going to touch up on the other aspects, which is obviously the intimacy parts of the trailers. So we've got, again, the good old-fashioned intimacy track for Silas.
In moments like these, I like that you can see through me.
And I love the fact that, like, even though it's in shade, his eye is glowing just as brightly as his, like, well-lit one.
In that case, I need you to take care of it for me.
Oh. What even is the situation? Beyond conspiracies and bloodshed, the night follows its own rules of survival. He promises you will see it with your own eyes. The beat never stops, pushing your drive to win. The revelry, obviously calling into log-awaited revelry, will never end as long as you want. In moments like these, I like that you can see right through me. And it's obviously speaking to the fact that they have a level of mutuality when it comes to actually being able to see each other's true selves. Which is, again, I feel like his song is also playing to that prejudice, the idea of what Silas is and who he actually is.
Close the door, and I might become more dangerous.
Still a little confused about where the door is, but you know what? I'll go through, you know, whatever you say. And this whole leading him up the stairs slowly and just, oh my god, Raphael's face is killing me.
Do you always go up the stairs this slowly?
What I appreciate about Raphael is he will always loudly call MC out, but also there's a level of realism in this dialogue, which I don't know how to explain. It just hit harder because it's like he didn't have to acknowledge the situation that she's clearly being sensual, but he does explicitly acknowledge it. And also I really like how it can highlight the little fishtail on his earring. Very cute little detail. That whole aspect just made it feel like, oh, he's calling out her antics, and it's a bit broke the wall a bit for me, and not in a bad way. It was kind of like, it just felt like very well written intimate dialogue in a very subtle way.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. Let me see just how bad you can be, okay? You can be worse.
So the rest of it is obviously a bit crazy. What mainly kind of confused me is essentially some of the writing in the second paragraph. So shadows quietly unfold through a painting. And obviously when you think of paintings, Raphael as an artist, he invites you to be his accomplice, slipping in disguise into the island's club. Now, it calls to my mind Banquet Ablaze, where him and MC are kind of going to this banquet for Raphael to get rid of someone who has been extremely poor towards the Lemurians for his own ends, and it kind of speaks a bit more to the darker aspects of the path Raphael walks. But also it makes me think of Raphael's branch quest, wherein him and MC, again, in a similar situation, ended up on an island party, working towards their own means and playing specific roles. But here, the stage he designed is nearly set, and Mr. Bodyguard longs to set aside his duty for once and savor the moment with you. Let me see how bad you can be. And obviously again, this bad dialogue is like something that like they're speaking to directly in the Kindle, and also speaks directly into the song. But Mr. Bodyguard, so is this a role that our Raphael then takes on? But if this is an AU, maybe the situation is flipped. But I think that this quite specifically might be they're again playing different roles. And I think there's like going to be a grander scheme across all of these different cards. Like Silas MC are going on a grander scheme in like some bigger revelry, and as they were mentioning, bloodshed. So it's got maybe a conspiracy in that kind of way, and then Raphael MC are a conspiracy in a different kind of way. I feel like it's gonna have they're all on kind of different secret missions, basically. He starts off looking so cute.
Your makeup got smudged. My bad. So, do I stop now, or should I? Yeah. No one is gonna interrupt us before the show begins.
The payoff on that makeup is genuinely crazy, but then again, it is stage makeup.
Mess you up a little more, please?
Like, they are really not giving too much away. And so I'm really hoping that the Kindles are significantly longer than we think. Similarly, the dialogue says, "Don't regret missing the moment he saved the show, for he's always willing to perform again only for you." So it seemed he saved the show in some kind of, again, like something was maybe meant to happen. He comes in and essentially saves the situation. With every step closer, every uncovered feeling moves to the rhythm of his hands. Your makeup got smashed, my bad. Da, da, da. So it's like, obviously their own feelings and their own relationship is finally developing into, again, we're slowly, well, it says slowly. I feel like every single 5-star for Caleb has been kind of reinforcing that they are entering a new sphere in their relationship and kind of going further into that. But again, I guess it still feels quite preliminary for them. But don't regret missing the moment he saved the show. I feel like they both then had like a bigger role to play, and he kind of saved her the situation that she was maybe like in.
At least I'm not alone this time.
That's very cute.
Some things should be kept between two people, and only two people.
What if the darkness changes me? Like, what if I become unpredictable? I feel like the dynamics they're playing with darkness is quite interesting, and that's what's going to be that bigger lead up. But I think the idea of darkness speaks to mystery and kind of swaying on a different path from the light alignment that they're both in.
Then I guess I'll just have to find the answer before the polar night ends.
And maybe this is meant to kind of be like her giving it to darkness or something.
Then I guess this is your way of claiming me.
For the description, the stage once dim beneath the stars now shines anew, the galaxy and starlight gleaming only for you. Now again, like very heavily emphasizing the brightness aspect. Across billions of light years, every journey leads to the meeting of eyes this moment. He will be the brightest star in your sky forever. Again, very obviously hitting you over the head, but also that like reinforcing some aspects of the lyrics in the sense that she's his only, and he only wants her to perceive him. The nights here are very long. And we already know the influence of his lips. We've seen since Business Trip, which is a standard game card, and then we saw it again during Cat Caretaker. But also we see a bit more emulation just happen during this. Oh, Hidden Motive, again with the lip antics. Absolute Zeal, again with the lip antics. Like, it's his core erogenous zone, honestly, at this point.
That doesn't matter. I'll spend every second with you.
And he's so unfazed. It's like, Zayn is so like completely calm and confident within himself to just be saying things like this. It kind of drives me crazy. And then how roughly she kind of gets rid of his earpiece and he barely flinches. It really speaks to that whole relationship dynamic they have, in the sense that she's a bit bratty, but she's like a menace, and she likes teasing him and like pushing him too far, and he's a bit more cold, calm, and collected, but he has a wildness inside him, and she just has to push him far enough, and then he finally gives into it. Okay. God, that smile. And then the cat caretaker bite again. And then this is giving, again, absolute Zeal callbacks, but also just like seeing their shoes like this, that alone just feels like such a sensual shot.
Don't make me think. You're the one who isn't ready to continue.
As per usual, Zane flips the script. Now, for the writing, it says, what kind of music does he like? Now, this is already very interesting because it's now playing on Zane's relationship with music. During GOA, she plays a lyre for him while he's having an adverse reaction during the first secret times in that myth. Gardner MC sings for him whilst they're dancing together in the tower. And then also Zane was singing during the event for one portion, which was also kind of cute. So it's quite interesting how they're playing into the musicality now. Also, during Master of Fate, Zane plays music for MC while she dances for him during that consummation ritual. So, what kind of music does he like? A song forged in ruins, one that has been with him through many decisions and long stretches of time. Now, many decisions and long stretches of time, reinforcing that whole chrono, time, and space aspect in the lyrics, but also with Zane as a supreme god who looks after timelines. Take the wheel and set off, join him to see the live show and share the excitement beyond the stage. Now, clearly that's the after stage effects, but now one has to wonder, they're meant to see the live show, but then how did they end up in it? Very, very polarizing. I am so confused as to the dynamics of what happens throughout this entire actual situation. That was really, really fun to talk about, and I feel like there's going to be like a bajillion more things I'm going to want to then talk about, but my brain is so fried right now. So yeah, those are some preliminary thoughts just on the entire banner. That was really as condensed as I could be. There was so much to say. I think this looks like an extremely fun banner. I would not be surprised if this ends up being one of the most lore-heavy banners, but for some reason, during a Lincoln progression timeline as opposed to an alternate parallel timeline. But yeah, that was so fun. I have no idea if anything's going to come of it. I just thought that the references throughout and potentially what they're trying to suggest with the costuming, with the music, with the dance routines, and with the set, I thought those were all real fun little tidbits. And like, I saw a few different references, and I feel like there's going to be way more references that I missed, but we'll actually uncover those when we actually go through the cards. So thank you so much if you decided to watch this with me, and I'm looking forward to sharing the gameplays of the cards with you very soon. Bye!